Hello everyone, this is Happy Mom Mariann. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to show you our ultimate Chicago architecture experience, and this is the city's most popular tour, the Chicago Architecture River Cruise. In just 90 minutes, you'll get the best overview of Chicago's architecture and its history, and they will share the fascinating stories behind more than 50 buildings along the Chicago River. So hope you all enjoy and finish the video, and see you in the next and more of Chicago tour videos from Happy Mom Mariann. Thank you.
Exterior is clad in light glazed terracotta. Originally several different shades of it. The bottom was a light powdered blue, the top was a bright white. Gradiently it would draw your eyes skyward. Today pretty much one standard color of that white glazed terracotta, designed by Graham to be beautiful from every single angle. And it certainly is. This first bridge we pass under is the Michigan Avenue Bridge. Notice it's also called DuSable Bridge. It's named after our first non-native settler. His full name was Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable. He settled here on the corner of Michigan Avenue around 1780. His name may sound French to you, Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable, but he was not. He was of Haitian descent. And after the tour, if you go on the upper level of Michigan Avenue, you'll see a little bus of DuSable. That area is called Pioneer Court, named after him. In front of the vessel, we have a silver tall tower with a decorative spire at the top. This is currently our second tallest building in Chicago, Trump Tower and International Hotel. This is from 2009. It's by Adrian Smith of the firm Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. Adrian Smith is a Chicago architect on the 98th floor. Now check out the style of windows they chose for the tower. This specific style of window is called a Mesian style. Why would they choose that specific style? Well, you'll see emerging on the right-hand side, this plain black building, its neighbor, is a Mesian building. So it's directly referencing that south-facing neighbor, giving a little tip of the hat, some acknowledgement that the black building was there first. Now the plain black building is AMA Plaza. This is by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. He's the father of modern architecture. We're going to hear his name a lot too. So this design is very significant. It's called black box modernism. This style was born out of a 20-year gap in U.S. history in which not much was being built. We'd gone through the Great Depression and then World War II. It was a very frugal generation, so we have a very frugal skyscraper. It is literally just steel holding it up, glass holding it in, and that's it. No decoration, no filigree, the bare bones of a skyscraper. Mies van der Rohe coined the term, less is more. When you say that, you're quoting him. Next to him on the right are these two curvilinear towers, and these are called Marina City. In Chicago, we lovingly refer to these as the corn cob towers because they resemble giant ears of corn. The inspiration, however, was flower petals, not corn kernels. And these were designed by Bertrand Goldberg. He was a student of Mies van der Rohe. So you have a student and teacher side by side. Pretty obvious, their ideas about architecture are so different, they're almost direct opposites of one another. Now these two towers were completed in 1964. They're known as a city within a city. So it's right through the building. I especially love seeing this building on beautiful clear days like today. It has such an open, light, and airy quality to it. Next to them on the left, we have a blue glassy tower, its neighbor, a throne-shaped stone-clad building, and these two neighbors are also referencing one another. So check out the first balcony on the blue glassy tower. You'll see it's at the very same height of the first setback of the stone-clad building next to it. Top of the stone-clad building, same height as that second balcony. So the stone-clad building's from 1930, the LaSalle Wacker. She was there first. So again, when the more modern neighbor comes to take the side of an older building, they often give that acknowledgement, that tip of the hat that you came before me. So we will see this relationship a lot along the river. As I said, they reference their neighbors, the history of the location, the environment. Just makes for a more friendly, more cohesive skyline. It's kind of a sign of respect. On the left-hand side, you can also see our Riverwalk. So this is a $100 million project. Every section or room of the Riverwalk is a different theme. For right now, it does seamlessly connect the lakefront to the Wolf Point area. And in the future, we will be extending it from Wolf Point all the way to Chinatown. Our new Riverwalk going underneath the bridges, whereas previously it went over the bridges. So now it's wheelchair accessible and just a lot nicer for everybody else. On the right-hand side, we have this supermassive Art Deco building. It's impossible to miss, Merchandise Mart. This is by Graham Anderson Probst and White again, and it was commissioned by Marshall Field and Company, the man who invented department stores. So here's an example of Art Deco. This style was the response to that Eurocentric style of architecture. So this is more modern, and this is more American. With Art Deco, we're going to keep a stone-clad exterior. This one's clad in limestone, which is a locally sourced material. With Art Deco, we also have recessed ribbon windows that draw your eyes skyward. It loves that height and verticality. Setbacks at the top, the staircase effect. Geometry like gold diamonds and chevron shapes. So very symmetrical, very geometric. Sometimes referred to as streamlined futurism. This is what we thought the future was going to look like. So the Roaring 20s were a very optimistic time in American history. The style reflects that optimism, using expensive materials and structures soaring up into the sky like visual progress. This style was very popular mid-20s, early 30s, and then afterwards the stock market crashed and the Great Depression happened. Now we are going to see a lot of Art Deco today. You'll become very familiar with it. There's a lot of examples on the river. Here we are now. We are in the Y-shaped intersection of the river. This is called Wolf Point. This is where the main branch, the north branch, and the south branch of the Chicago River meet. Now in front of us, you'll see several blue skyscrapers and some construction here. So all of these guys are brand new. The construction to the right is Wolf Point Tower South. It's going to be the top. If you look inside the parabolic arch at the bottom, you'll see the glass is tilted back. So it mirrors that sculpture, the river, and the riverwalk, the curving facade mimicking the curvature of the river. This is also clad in blue glass. When you see this, this is the new trend in architecture. See how these blue glassy buildings almost disappear up into the sky? That's the trend. Now we're not going to have a name for the new style of architecture until we're done using it and moving on to the next thing. It's just like with art, you need a little distance on the subject before you can give it a good, accurate name while you're using it. Is this blue tower with the balconies, Wolf Point Tower West. So this is 42 stories tall. It's by Pelly Clark Pelly. Anything you see with balconies like this, you can probably bet it's going to be a residential tower. That's your giveaway. The tower has this silver piping running the length of the tower, giving it an updated look to those Miesian-style windows that we talked about earlier. In front of the vessel, we have this raised bridge. This is the old Carroll Avenue Railroad Bridge. We used to use it, you can tell we don't anymore. Now, every bridge we pass under does open up and move, just like this one. We're going to talk about that engineering later on, so this is a really good visual to keep in the back of your mind, especially that block of concrete, that counterweight. We're going to reference that later, so just keep the image with you. And right across from the raised bridge on the left-hand side are these triangle-shaped river cottages, and these are by Harry Weiss and Associates. So he served in the Navy, and he loved nautical themes. So lots of his buildings have triangle shapes to resemble sails on a boat, round windows like portholes on a ship, and then they have their own marina as well. These are only 4 units, and they're from 1989. They had never not been occupied until 2015, the 3rd unit in went up for sale for the first time ever. It sold in just 2 weeks, and it went for $2.25 million. Just ahead of us here is a residential area where we're going to be making our first spin on the tour. So it's a really good time if you'd like to ask any questions. I'll take a quick walk around and see if you have any questions yet. Also perfect time for to visit Jake at the bar. He's got all kinds of stuff down there for you, especially ice cold bottles of water. Please make sure you stay hydrated. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the boat ride. We're going to turn around. First, I got a couple of questions about the cocoa smells. So it is the Blommer's Chocolate Factory. They're a cocoa producer and they outsource that cocoa. You can't see the factory, but sometimes on some days you can smell those cocoa smells in the pockets around the city. Continuing on here with some architecture and history on the right hand side, you'll see this pink brick building. Just give it a minute, these trees are pretty full right now. Pink brick building with the nautical warehouse. It was a giant refrigerator, one of many, where we kept the meat from the Union stockyards. So Chicago's chief industry for a long time was the Union stockyards. We did mass production slaughterhouses. About 100,000 animals a day were slaughtered here in Chicago, mostly on the South Branch. Now we needed a giant refrigerator to put a lot of that meat, so here was one of them. If you look at the balconies here, you'll see the walls in some places are 4 feet thick, so thick walls insulating the building, keeping it cool. Now this was renovated into condos by Harry Weiss. He likes those nautical themes, so they added a marina, some nautical star details just for decoration, towards the top more round windows like portholes. Put your camera off the port side, you can enjoy that beautiful view. And as a heads up, we're going to be making 3 turns on this journey. So if it looks like we missed a building on the way up, guess what? We're probably going to get it on the way back. So we will be making this walkthrough turn off the green spaces. So the Getch partners we just left with that narrow sliver of land to build on and to get it work is finished up in 2017. Now bridge raising season is upon us, so you're going to see a lot of bridge maintenance happening on this journey. You can see them propping up the Randolph Street Bridge here. That ding ding ding, just because we're working on it. Left hand side, another blue tower. Here is the brand new Bank of America Tower, 110 at North Wacker, also by the Getch partners. So again, with that engineering, tree-like external braces, also a skyscraper going on top of those external braces to keep the footprint extremely small and then set back from the river that 30 feet. Inside, we have another super massive Art Deco building, and this one looks like a giant throne. This is the Civic Opera building, again by Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White. So this is from 1930, that Art Deco style has a tendency to draw really does resemble a giant throne, so some people call it Insil's throne after Samuel Insel, a utility magnate who made lots of money, adored the fine arts, so he commissioned this giant opera house. You'll see that on some neoclassical and Art Deco buildings, it's just to make them seem older than they actually are. On the left-hand side, we have this brown building with the serrated edges. This is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Center. These serrated edges to optimize corner office spaces. Everybody likes a corner office with a view, and you don't want people fighting over them within your company, so they optimize those spaces to keep the peace. The middle portion being a double-decker train floor, and here's yet another barge doing maintenance. Come over to the right, you can see and hear our metro train coming into Union Station. So if you're coming in or leaving by train, here's where you're picking up. There's also an Amtrak, so again, it gets pretty noisy on the river, just bear with me here. So this is what air rights construction looks like. Rail companies like these ones owned all of the land along the river first, and we're still actively using these rail lines, so no one is selling this land to you. What they will do is they will lease you the air above the trees for 99 years. They will allow you to put support columns to go along the train tracks. You can build a platform and your skyscraper goes on top. So that's air rights construction, and everything we saw on the right, starting with the wide screen curving building and the this is Gateway Center 4. Same firm again, Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, but here they are in the 1980s, where we're really done with black box modernism. We'll keep the steel and we'll keep the glass, but we no longer want buildings that go anywhere. We want buildings for right here. So postmodernism is site-specific architecture, and this is a really beautiful example of that. So we have this curving facade to mimic the curving river, green tinted windows like the green of the river. The windows are bubbled out and pinched in to give it this wavy appearance like water. It's almost like the building is rising out of the Chicago River or made out of the river itself. It's lovingly embracing its surroundings, so it's aging really well. So it's from the 80s, but still comes off as extremely modern. And thanks to those gateway centers, you get this little step-by-step example of exactly where our architecture trends have evolved from. And today, as I said, we're doing those blue glassy buildings. On the right-hand side, you have yet another super massive Art Deco building. It's again by Graham in the middle of the building, like no big deal. The reason we have a post office this size is because the mail order catalog business was started in Chicago. So you ordered some goods from Montgomery Ward or from Sears. They'd be shipped from this location to catch the trains underneath the ground to ship them to us on the left. These are brand new residential towers. As we go down, you're going to see behind this blue fencing some heavy equipment and land for an additional third tower. I do really appreciate when they have these building materials out because you get to see what the groundwork of a skyscraper is. You briefly heard me mention caissons. Well, what are those? Well, as we go by, you'll see a bunch of them. So basically, they're just here. Only the one got built. You can see those blank spaces of concrete. That's where the addition was going to attach and then further snake down the river. He's using 4 in-place concrete. Now this is a really great material. You can shape it however you like to. So if you like building in circles, then this really is the material for you. Here he left the concrete raw and unpainted, an architecture that's called brutalism. Now, lots of people tell me they do not like the look of brutalism, where all concrete is not singing their heart song. And I understand that. It's a bit stark and a bit heavy, but I think of it as a very humble building material. It's not cutting on airs, it's not painted at all. It's just allowing that material to sing as exactly what it is. This, too, is a city within a city. Inside are all of your modern conveniences. Overlook the school, and then they got to the marina as well. Their marinas do have a bubbling system, and what that does is it continually agitates the water so that ice has no chance to form on the surface, and they can leave their boats in these waters all year long. Now, for everyone else in the city, you gotta go to dry docks for the winter. You cannot leave your boat in these icy waters, it will get destroyed. So just Marina City and River City have those bubbling systems, and they get to stay there. If there are any emergencies, they can zip over to that emergency. Those water cannons they have, they're so powerful, they shoot them up in the air. They go about 14 stories. They're absolutely powerful. So there's our first response. It's kind of a weird rule, but basically radio antenna, we're using them. They could break and then be replaced. Because it's not a permanent fixture, it does not count as a total height. On the other hand, a decorative spire is a permanent fixture, and that does count as the total height. So it's a weird rule, but here we are. Now I say the tower is 110 stories tall. I do count the top utility closets that blink at you sometimes. There's 2 basement floors. It's by Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. We talked about them a lot with those gateway centers and the evolution of architecture. But this is really home with a super tall skyscraper. Now they have an observation deck up there. It's called the Ledge. I am going to point that out when we get closer, and we'll see exactly what that looks like. But before we go any further, we do have to tell. That's where we sold our grain futures. So the statue is the Roman goddess of grain. Her name is Ceres, like cereal. Compare that statue of Ceres to the bays of windows, and you can see she's over 3 stories tall. It's 31 feet in total. The building is from 1929 by Halliburton Root. that year, and then 20 years after, the Board of Trade was the tallest building here in the city of Chicago. Now, the Statue of Ceres has no face. People say it's because the architects were so proud of the building being so tall, they thought no one's going to notice the statue has no face. That's not really true. From the street level, you can tell she's faceless. It's just Art Deco. So Art Deco will streamline everything, oftentimes even your face right off of you. If you think of the Oscar statue, that too is Art Deco. And he too is faceless. On the right-hand side, we have this dash balcony building in gray and dark gray. It's a recent residential tower that's just known for its address. Us docents have been calling it the Morse Code building. Just for fun, we did translate it into Morse code. It doesn't mean anything, it's just gibberish. What we found is that the dash balconies are actually meant to look like this highway from above. Like trucks and cars, cars and trucks, trucks and... I've also got some really nice round balconies to optimize those views. If you're looking for a really good photo of the Sears /Willis, I do highly recommend this vantage point after the bridge. Now that we're closer, you can also see where the setbacks from the engineering stand. So first they stop on the 50th floor, the 66th, and the 90th. So while you're snapping a photo of him, we're going to talk about his pink neighbor with the snow. When you hear me say that, it usually has to do something with financing. Not enough. To the right-hand side, you have our largest piece of public art. This is a giant map. It's a Lego piece that's in the middle. That is this building, and that's where we are right now. So you are here. You can see towards the top that Y-shaped intersection of Wolf Point, where the river branches to the north, south, and main branch. You can also see these squares. That's our grid system. It's part of our city plan of 1909 we adopted after that Great Chicago Fire. So the fire awarded us a really good opportunity to not just reimagine and rebuild, but to reclaim the city in a much better way. And Walt Disney adopted our city plan for his theme parks. That's why they're so clean, orderly, and nice. He got that from the city of Chicago, who's a big fan of us. Alright, we'll see if anyone's in the ledge this morning. If you want to look to the right, all the way up, on the 103rd floor, you'll see some more glass boxes. Yeah, I can see some people in there. So there's the ledge. This is a glass box. It comes a little over 4 feet off the edge of the building. You can walk. Really cool what they did in there. So check it out if you haven't gone inside. A super tall skyscraper. Both observation decks are great. You'll be happy with either one. Was the Sphinx. It's got his little claws out in front. Huge setback to leave the weight off the train tracks. It's from 1929, first attempt on air rights construction. Some Egyptian boss reliefs on the exterior to document the written word. This was the original location. See at the bottom, there are these grates. So they're there to exhaust the trains underneath the ground when they hide it with some shrubbery here. And this was originally designed for the Morton Salt Company. If you look up at the top of the main tower, you'll see 6 holes kind of just, here's some more of that bridge maintenance. And we talked a little bit about the Sears/Willis Tower swaying in the wind, but what happens to something like this Y-shaped tower when the winds pick up? And they often do. So this tower has 12 inertial slosh dampeners. They're huge concrete canisters. They're filled with thousands of gallons of water. So as the wind is blowing the building in one direction, the water in the tank will slosh to the opposite direction. Just enough to dampen the inertia to keep it from swaying too much in the wind, which of course makes people feel very uncomfortable. Now, this tower has a sway allotment of 3 inches on either side, but it's more important for our towers to bend with the wind, almost dance with the forces of nature, than for them to feel stressed, buckle, break, and snap. So most skyscrapers in Chicago, they do have a little bit of wiggle to them. And towards the end of the tour, we're going to see Chicago's first. You recognize the building from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. These are the offices of Ferris's dad. There's also a train coming up behind us. It's going to get noisy. Just bear with me here. It's the green line again. So here's some more of that site-specific architecture from the 1980s that aged really well. We've got a curving facade, like the curving river, alternating blue and green glass matching the green of the river. Those colors done in a horizontal pattern, so that your eye goes across the curve to appreciate it. The best part, however, the super reflective nature of the glass. What better way to stay relevant than to just hold up a giant curving mirror and change with the environment around you? So any photos I had of this building before 2017, they didn't look anything like this because these 5 towers at Wolf Point, they didn't exist yet. People in Chicago do call them the Pez Dispenser Hall of Fame because they kind of look like giant Pez dispensers. On the left-hand side, we have a red brick building that says Chicago School on the outside. This is the Helen Curtis building. It's from 1914. Now here's an example of Chicago's School of Architecture. Now this style has 3 parts. It's called a tripart design. So the bottom has a strong base, the middle has a soaring shaft, the top a decorative capital. Base, shaft, capital. Same components of a Greek or Roman column, very classic design. Now, Chicago School of Architecture was made famous by Louis Sullivan. If you're looking for some Louis Sullivan buildings, you won't find them on the river. If you've been to that Target on State Street in the Loop with that beautiful ironwork, that's a Louis Sullivan building. Some of his ironwork is also in the Art Institute, so he's around but not on the river. And back in 1914, the Helen Curtis was a coffee warehouse. Now left-hand side, red brick building with the clock tower is the Reed Murdoch Center, and it's also from 1914. So they're the same age. Back then, he was a grocery warehouse. And this is by George C. Nimmons. This style of architecture is called Prairie School. Prairie School was made famous by Frank Lloyd Wright. Where will we find him? Again, not on the river. So Frank Lloyd Wright has one interior downtown. It's inside of the Rotary. Most of Frank Lloyd Wright buildings are on Oak Park, so that's west of here, and he has one more Rogers Park. So again, they're around, just not everybody's on the river. As I said, it's pretty unpopular to build. Beautiful Union Carbide and carbon. Now this is from 1929. That was the height of Prohibition, when alcohol in this country was illegal, and it was built to look like a giant champagne bottle. Pretty and conspicuous. Ian Young Burnout. Now, this opened up recently as the Hotel Pendry. Sometimes I like to say that architecture is much like history that's frozen in time. And when I look at this building, I know exactly what was going on in history. Chicagoans were told, you cannot do something, and this was our attitude about it. Of course, we never stopped drinking in Chicago. There was a car elevator inside. The idea was you drive your car into the building, take it to any of the first 23 floors, so you're unloading your valuables in the security of that space, not out in the street where you might get robbed by gangsters or whoever. Now the car elevator was very difficult to maintain, only lasted 14 years, and then they removed it, turning that core into offices. Now she was supposed to have a sister tower that was identical right next door. But after her completion in 1929, the stock market crashed, the Great Depression happened, so only the one here was realized. Lord Ali, skinny ribbon windows draw your eyes skyward to lead you to the distinctive spidery crown with the flying buttresses of a terrace based off La Tour de Bulle, the Butter Tower in France. If you'd like to point your eyeballs and cameras to the left, you'll see 3 historic stone-clad buildings, the Wrigley Building, Hotel Intercontinental, and the Tribune Tower. So if we were here in the late 1920s, this is the view we would have gotten almost exactly. So it's very beautiful. The logo stamped on the top. So Foster & Partner also using that prairie spirit of architecture, so low and flat, like a prairie, and then a see-through design so we can still see the details of the Tribune Tower. I am going to point out the John Hancock. It's very hard to see on the tour, so just bear with me. If you're interested, look sharply to the left. In the distance, it's a very sweet guy, so we'll say hi to him. So, Jeannie Gang is one of the biggest and brightest architects that are coming up in the world right now, so we're really happy to have her back building. The tallest tower is 101 stories, 1,191 feet. So this is not just Chicago's new 3rd tallest tower in our city. This is the world's tallest tower designed by a female-led architectural firm. So that's pretty cool. So you can really tell Jeannie Gang's influence. She loves water. This is from the 1970s. It's by Shipwort and Heinrich. They were students of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, so we could really tell what was going on. playing with that Miesian design, black box modernism, rounded corners, cutting down on the wind noise, curving facade to optimize those views. Visiting them, you should really make sure you call ahead of time and be sure they're open before you go over there. And here we are passing under Lakeshore Drive, where yet more bridge maintenance is going on, although they've been working on this bridge for, this is like the third year now, so this has been kind of a heavy-duty project. They've replaced a lot of the steel here. You can see the new pieces and the old pieces. They have just renamed Lakeshore Drive to Jean-Baptiste du Sable Lakeshore Drive, named after our first non-native settler, Jean-Baptiste du Sable. They will be turning this plot of land here to Du Sable Park once they're done with all this construction. And then there's going to be 2 more super tall skyscrapers on that plot of land there. So after all the construction is done, we'll turn it into a public park. On the left-hand side with the Ferris wheel, here we are at Navy Pier, which tends to be our #1 tourist attraction here in Chicago. It goes neck and neck with Millennium Park for the locks. The locks are actually either open or closing right now. They're closing. Thank you, Captain. They're closing. So these are our locks. If we wanted to go under the lake, we would have to do what's called locking through, and that takes a really long time that we don't have. Instead, what we're going to do is make our final spin, and then we're going to tell a couple more stories, and then we're going to head right into dock. While we're making this final spin, you can either spot. Now there's a lot of stuff to do at Navy Pier if you haven't been already. So they have a brand new hotel, classic lake tours, shops, restaurants, amusement park rides. The Ferris wheel is the most notable feature, which is 200 feet tall. It's called Centennial Wheel. It is a birthday present for Navy Pier. In 2016, she turned 100. So the pier was born back in 1916. It was a municipal pier. This is where we did a lot of our shipping. During World War II, this was a naval and air force training academy. That's why it's called Navy Pier. In the 80s, it was UNC's university campus, very cool. The average is around 18 to 20 feet for this river. There's a white clay bottom to really reflect that algae up towards the surface. We do dry the river on St. Patrick's Day. This is the Chicago Plumbers Association. They have a powdered vegetable dye. It's a bright orange color, and when it interacts with the natural green algae, it turns the river a bright Kelly green, almost a neon color. So if you look it up, it's very different from the green here today. Very, very bright, very neon. So that dye is biodegradable, doesn't hurt the fish, although that's an industrial river. This is where all of our garbage went, including any animal debris from the Union stockyards. So it was foul-smelling and disgusting and extremely toxic. So this toxic river was flowing into Lake Michigan, and that's the pressure. We can't let you disembark until we're securely docked, and only the captain knows when that has happened. So please wait for the all clear and have a seat until you get that. As you leave us today, if you took a boarding photo, make sure you check those out. Chicago.